Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Ji ayanu, pakhair-agale, ni hao, chunishumme, washmale. Oh, hi, Benzimers. Guten Morgen. Hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal? Halashuma chatore, ahlan wasalan, marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabia, balli kare, hosh gal, dinanayo sayo, huya mora, adab, and thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning. Alongside my very wonderful and well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Sati. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. Ladies and gentlemen, first things first, I think what I really need to do is ask my wonderful and amazing co-host, how is she doing today and how was her weekend? Hello Haja, how are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Shahzad, for asking me out. So, I really wanted to talk about a movie which was trending on the Twitter.
How are you? How was your weekend? Then we'll move on to the movie, okay?
Alhamdulillah, it was good. How was your weekend?
Well, my weekend obviously was a little tiring, and I think
because of the cricket?
No, not because of the, obviously because of the cricket, but then, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of children these days are actually suffering from the viral infections which are out there. And it certainly does not have any sort of medication which can actually help them. And it's because you know, when a viral comes in, you know, you never know what the treatment is going to be. But unfortunately, and I'm going to request a lot of people who are out there, if you're watching, my daughter has been admitted in the hospital for the last 3 days, and we've been struggling to manage. Alhamdulillah, she's getting well, but we're not getting rid of the fever at this point of time. So I just want to request all parents who are out there, you know, that minute negligence of your kid walking bare feet in this cold weather can actually bring you quite a lot of problems. So please make sure that you're on top of your parenting, because God forbid if it goes, you know, when your child or my child or anybody's child is sick, you know, you certainly do not feel on top of the world. You know, you pray to Allah Almighty quite a lot. So please be very, very careful with your children. Make sure that, you know, all the time, if they're walking on ground, toddlers, everybody, you know, that they're covered and that they do not get under the weather.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much for saying that. And certainly the weather is the sort of where people do get the influenza and a lot of things. And I do feel the influenza is changing nowadays.
Because it's not even raining now, so it's dry weather. On top of that, the kids have dry cough, and then God forbid if you do not look after them very well, they can end up having pneumonia. That can be really lethal for children too as well. So parents, just be very careful with your kids. Make sure, because at times what happens, Hajra, is that, you know, the kids, because they do not know anything, right?
True.
So they'll be like, okay, you know, we want to do this.
And sometimes they're very resistant to wearing the socks and the warm clothes, and they do not like it, right?
So you really need to put up that pressure because they're not aware of, God forbid, what can happen. So please just make sure that, you know, you have that heavy heart, and with that heavy heart, you control them so that they actually live a very healthy life.
And especially if one of the family members is hospitalized, it affects the entire family, the entire routine is disturbed, and obviously there's another level of anxiety with the parents because we don't know what is going to happen, and obviously their pain is also the parents' pain, right?
Exactly. So now going back to where you were, yes?
Right, so I watched the movie called Farha. It's about how the Palestinians suffered at the hands of the Israeli forces in 1948, and the movie is shown from the eyes of a 14-year-old girl who wants to acquire the education out there, but her father says, no, you need to get a cultural suitor for her. But then again, her progressive uncle convinces her father to let her go out, but then again, her village is attacked, her father is killed, and it's a very wonderful story, and a lot of Israeli government officials are against this movie because they feel that it's misrepresenting them. And Shahzad, matter of the fact is, this is what has been going on in the Palestine for so many years, the ethnic cleansing, the dispossession, the siege, the agony that they suffer, and the belonging for home that they suffer at the hands of the Israeli forces. And it is said about the fiction and the literature that if truth is suppressed, it finds its way to come out, especially from the fiction and literature, and that this movie was all about. So I think you all need to watch that movie.
Exactly. In addition to that, you know, there's a very famous saying, and it has always stayed with me, and you know, sometimes when I look back in the type of films we used to watch as kids, they say that fiction actually becomes reality, and I've seen that becoming reality as well. So, you know, be very careful with that. And, you know, since you mentioned that, you know, the story actually revolves around this 14-year-old girl, you know, so that's the scope everybody's going to view it from. And certainly, so you might be very well aware about Palestine now, and how
Right.
Israeli forces have worked into Palestine. Not just that,
Right.
because I can relate it to the book I read once. It was by Khalid Hosseini, and the book was about Afghanistan. It was this girl who got married to an Afghani.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
so whichever place she was going, there was such beautiful description of the
Thousand
places.
Splendid Suns, I guess.
I think, yeah,
Yeah,
it
I've
had
read
this
that.
title Sun to it as well, but I cannot remember them. But the book was beautiful. So I got to know about, so many different civilizations within Afghanistan. So it's always good to read, to watch. And I think for me, watching works most of the time. What
Right.
about you?
Reading, of
Really?
course. I think you know that, no?
So it's a mix and match, which is why, I picked up on watching, all right? But she watched the film, that too over the weekend. I think great weekend.
Okay, Alhamdulillah. So moving on to our top stories, where Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif will visit Mangla Dam today to inaugurate the refurbishment and renovation project of Mangla Hydel Power Station, Shehzad.
Yeah.
So Prime Minister, during his visit, will inaugurate the refurbishment and the renovation project of Unit 5 and Unit 6 at the Mangla Hydel Power Station. Mangla Dam renovation and refurbishment project is ongoing with the support of the USAID and the government of Pakistan. And certainly with the kind of flooding that we are seeing, Shehzad, I think it's vital that we need to have such kind of mega projects, mega dams, where we can capture that amount of the water.
Exactly, and refurbishment is extremely important. And it's because of the fact that the amount of water inflow in the country has increased, and that too by many folds. So imagine, if it was raining, let's say 300%. Now imagine that we have moved on to 700% or 500%. So we really need to make sure that our dams are intact, they're in place, because God forbid that can be another emergency if the dams do not stay intact as well. The entire towns can be flooded and be swept off the water or by the water. But now coming down to how over here in Pakistan real estate is an industry and everybody's a part of it, one way or the other, whatever we save, we want to invest it in real estate. And when we talk about financial literacy, I've spoken about this documentary I watched where all of those billionaires all over the world, they still say that, the only thing which makes them sad is that we haven't bought enough property. So imagine over here in Pakistan, for the very first time, ladies and gentlemen, an international real estate expo is going to take place. Wow, Pakistan is that place where we will have a lot of opportunity. A lot of people will come in and witness that what do we have to offer. So the Ministry of Housing and Works has completed all the arrangements to organize the first ever international housing and real estate expo on December 8th to promote the real estate business in the country. Besides ensuring safe and secure housing for the people, a 4-day expo will be organized in collaboration with Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industries, NUST, NED, NCA, ComSats and other organizations to encourage the approved housing projects and uplift the construction sector in the country. The people associated with the real estate and housing industry across the country would participate in the exhibition. The stall are being allocated to all the real estate developers, housing societies, real estate consultants and construction material related industries with special focus of climate resilient housing, which is very important, need of the hour. The main objective of the expo is to create awareness among the masses on approved real estate in the country. That line, ladies and gentlemen, I think is very important. Approved real estate of the country. And for all of those investors who are coming in, I think that's something for you people to please make sure that you ensure that wherever you're investing, that has to be approved by the government.
Okay, so moving on to another top story, which is about a renowned great humorist, writer, broadcaster and a diplomat who served as the first permanent representative of Pakistan to United Nations. Syed Ahmad Shah, commonly known as Patras Bukhari, is being remembered today on his 64th death anniversary. So let's take a look at the package.
Syed Ahmad Shah, commonly known as Patras Bukhari, an educationist, man of letters, a diplomat, and one of the most renowned writers of Pakistan. He was born in 1898 in Peshawar into a Kashmiri family which migrated from Baramulla. Bukhari received his early education in the city of his birth and in 1916 moved from Islamia College Peshawar to attend Government College Lahore. After completing his master's in English, he was appointed as lecturer at the same institution. In 1922, he took his MA in English after just 1 year's study and stood first, after which he was appointed lecturer at the college. This was his creative period. His bilingual excellence is owed to his intensive translation of great books and plays from English to Urdu, PTV and private news channels reported. He was tall and blue-eyed, had a razor-sharp mind, an equally sharp tongue, and a keenness to go forward in life. In 1923, he married Zubaida Wancho, a Punjabi-speaking Kashmiri lady and daughter of Superintendent of Police. They have 3 children, 2 sons, Mansoor and Harun, and a daughter, Roshanara. Roshanara died as a child. He died on 5th December 1958 during his diplomatic service and is buried in Valhalla Cemetery, New York.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and it is really very important for us and the future generations that they remember for all those people who've contributed in many ways, rendered their services for the country, and that's our humble initiative to make sure that every single time if there's such a personality whose death anniversary, birth anniversary is around the corner, that we remind you of these amazing people who've actually sketched the very art and culture of Pakistan, and they've represented Pakistan always in a very positive manner.
So wonderful, Shahzad. We will talk about very pertinent issues that is nowadays very prevalent among the general population in Pakistan and obviously in the entire world.
Let me guess it.
Yeah.
So either it can be, God forbid, polio,
Right.
or either it can be diabetes or
Yeah.
cholesterol.
Oh,
What is
wow.
it? What is
Wow,
it?
you're so well informed. How is that? I think it's diabetes. Okay, so we are going to talk about the diabetes because it was a perception, common perception that people over 40 usually get that. But now I see a lot of young people. I have my own cousin, she's suffering from the diabetes, and that too at a very young age, I think of 3 or 4 years. And she's regular, and she's habitual of injecting the insulin herself. So obviously one of the big cause that I think is because of our lifestyles and the way it has changed in the dietary consuming habits that we have, because we are into all of these junk foods that are major contributor of the diabetes. But this is my perception, right? So we need to have a more enlightened
Professional insight.
Yes, more enlightened insight or knowledge from the professional who happens to be a doctor, and he's going to enlighten us about what is diabetes, what are the risk factors, how to, take care of yourself, stuff like that. So we're very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Mohammad Nasir Khan. He's a consultant internal medicine, Max Health Hospital in Islamabad. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum salam. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor for us to have you.
Talk about diabetes. Of course, diabetes is at the moment very important.
True.
It is kind of pandemic all over the world.
True.
About more than 5 million people are suffering from diabetes world over, and in Pakistan 33 million people are suffering from diabetes, and another 11 millions are in pre-diabetic state.
All right.
So we expect that even presently every out of 10, every 10, 1% is suffering from diabetes, and the prevalence is likely to increase. They say that maybe a time will come that one from every 4.
Sir, let's make it very simple. I think, from all 3 of us,
Right.
I have 2 people with diabetes within my family. One happens to be my uncle and one happens to be my nephew, who is only 10 years old. You mentioned about one.
Right. I have lots of
Yeah.
family members, they're suffering
that
from.
is exactly this thing. So maybe one family is exempted, but the other family 3-4%, 5-6%. So all sister brothers they suffer with diabetes. So expectedly diabetes is increasing, and it is going to affect. Obviously,
and it's a silent killer too.
It affects the individual, affects the family, and it affects the country as a whole.
Exactly.
Both from the economic point of view and both from the physical well-being.
And even from the healthcare systems point of view as well, because the burden gets on increasing, and we really need to talk about it and curtail it. But very quickly, sir, for our audiences out there, what is diabetes? For Aam Fahm Zuban mein, what is diabetes?
And you talked about the pre-diabetic condition. How do we know if we are in the pre-diabetic condition? Please enlighten us.
Let's see. First, we say what diabetes is. It was very simple that we have some organ called pancreas. It produces insulin. So when we take a carbohydrate meal, any meal which contains glucose or sugar,
roti.
so this sugar will go into the blood, and it will raise the blood sugar level. So at that time, pancreas is going to sense that sugar is high.
Okay.
It will pour out insulin, and insulin will push this sugar in the blood into the cells, and cells will utilize it for energy. That is the source of energy for us.
Exactly.
So if insulin is not working properly, or insulin is not there, the person will not be able to metabolize the glucose.
Okay.
So blood sugar will increase. So on the one end, the sugar in the blood is increasing. On the other end, the person is not utilizing it, so he is not getting enough energy.
So what wrong
So
will
this
it
is-
cause if the blood sugar levels are higher within our body? And this is something which we really need to talk about in detail, and there's a reason. Because imagine people might, Hajra, at times say that, that the blood sugar levels are higher. Now, if they are higher, what's the problem we will be facing, God forbid, if it happens to us?
See, if blood sugar is high, like if we consider two types of diabetes,
Yep.
one is a type 1 diabetes, which is usually in the children, as Ajra was saying, 3 years old or 10 years old, boy is having diabetes and he is on insulin. So insulin is not there, so blood sugar will increase. So when blood sugar will increase, it will produce certain effects.
Okay.
So in type 1 diabetes, there is a condition called diabetic ketoacidosis.
Okay.
When the blood sugar goes very high, then fat starts metabolizing, some acids are formed, and it can lead to even unconsciousness.
Okay.
This condition is very bad. Sometimes it results into a very catastrophic event, and it needs hospitalization and lot of treatment. So on the one end, this is for type 1 diabetes.
Yep.
So advice for the type 1 diabetics are that whenever they are diagnosed, they should take insulin regularly, never stop at any cost.
So let's do it step by step. So first of all, let's just, make more awareness out there, create more awareness out there for people who might not even know that they might be diabetic, So what are those preconditions where Ms. Hajra actually very promptly mentioned that, let's talk about those preconditions. God forbid, if I am diabetic, what am I going to witness?
For these preconditions, basically we come to the type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
Type 2 diabetes is the commonest diabetes we find every second, third, fourth person.
Okay.
Almost 90% of diabetics belong to the type 2 group.
True.
In this type 2 group, basically insulin is there, but it is not working. Why it is not working? Usually, there is some family background, one thing. The second is, usually the people are obese,
Yep.
obesity. Then the other is lack of exercise. So this obesity, lack of exercise, and a familiar predisposition that the person has less receptors for the insulin to act, this leads to diabetes. So what if I would talk about precondition, I believe that if somebody has history of type 2 diabetes family, this is a already established precondition that the children are likely to develop diabetes. Then if the diet is not adequate, mean lot of sugar, fat, and extra diet, extra calories, the weight will increase. Exercise is less. So lack of exercise and obesity will lead to diabetes at a very early age. So this
And early symptoms, what can be early symptoms? Because they say that, if you're urinating quite a lot, within your sleep, if you have to get up, that's a precondition for you to be diabetic, God forbid, as well.
Usually in type 1 diabetes, when insulin is not there, it is a very short duration,
Right.
and the child suffers from passing more urine,
Yep.
urination, because glucose is pouring out of the in the urine,
Yeah.
and that creates increased urine, increased thirst, increased appetite. But the child will not gain weight.
Okay.
So this kind of thing is in type 1 diabetes, that if child is going again to the washroom, he is taking more food, but he is losing weight, so and his thirst, increased water intake. So these conditions, we can think of that person is diabetic. As far as type 2 diabetes is concerned, sometimes there are no symptoms.
Okay.
Type 2 diabetes,
No symptoms at all.
sometimes there are no symptoms at all. So, and when the symptoms come, it means the disease has already progressed a lot.
Okay.
Already progressed a lot. So how you will consider that this type 2 diabetics? For the type 2 diabetics, basically we should have some kind of screening.
Right. And
You
how
will-
often do you think we need to have that
You will do the
screening?
test, you will do the test, blood sugar test, and you will know that blood sugar is not normal.
So, usually it's very common now, so Dr. Saab, that, we do have those AccuCheck machines at our places. We keep on doing those runs as well.
So what is important is that one thing is that whosoever can check blood sugar, maybe after 20 years, after 30 years, must check.
Okay.
But one of the things is that we cannot generalize that all the population will check.
True.
So basically, we think that all those people who have risk of diabetes, they should start checking their blood sugar very early. Like the person who has a family history of diabetes, the person
And family history, is it immediate family or is it like chachu or dada or nana or mamu?
well, first we consider
Brothers,
parents,
sisters, parents.
brothers, sisters, and parents. But the parent, your father and his brother, two other
Obviously.
brothers are also suffering.
True.
So that also come to
Exactly, into the
first
play.
degree relations. First degree relations, they are considered as. But the first is of course the sibling and the parents.
And parents.
So those people who have diabetes in their family, they should be very vigilant. They may have pre-diabetes without any symptoms, and particularly those who are obese.
Okay.
So obesity is one cause that any obese person after 20 years must check the test for the
And nowadays, Shahzad, matter of the fact is that the obesity is such a problem, raging problem within the Pakistan, and one of the reason is the lack of the mobility, right? I mean, we have now cars where we can go, hop on them and go, and without any walking, I mean, that is causing a lot of problems out there. And especially it is sad about the people who are residing in the mountainous areas that their age...
Fitter.
Yeah, their age is more because why? Because they're more physically fit because they're walking a lot, they are trotting and going from the mountains and all. So, Dr. Saab, there are a lot of factors that you mentioned, risk factors that makes a person prone to having this disease. So, how can we create more awareness regarding this phenomenon?
Well, I believe that one of the things is that what we are doing and what I am doing, this is the worst thing. But obviously, this message sometimes reach to a sector of the population.
Yeah.
But what I believe is that the medical related people, the doctors, the nurses, and our medical fraternity must come up and join the awareness programs. A few days ago, the in World Diabetic Day was celebrated.
True.
And we arranged one lecture with quite a good number of people. So I believe going to the colleges, going to the high schools,
Right.
delivering lectures, creating some awareness program, that is important, because type 2 diabetes is the diabetes which can be prevented.
Exactly.
If
Okay,
it
so
cannot be
type 2
prevented-
diabetes can be prevented.
Yeah, yeah. If
can
it-
be prevented or treated.
Prevented.
Okay.
If it cannot be prevented, it can be delayed. Its onset can be delayed.
Okay.
And if its onset is there, it can be controlled.
So, let's
In a
start
better
with
way.
prevention. How can we prevent type 2 diabetes?
Type 2 diabetes, basically, prevention is lifestyle.
It's better than cure at least.
So what lifestyle our forefathers were having? Very simple diets and a lot of exercise.
Simple circular.
I can remember that I used to walk 3 kilometers towards the school, 3 kilometers coming back to the school, 1 hour football in between.
Wow.
And then maybe at the weekend 6 kilometers to see my maternal grandmama
Yeah.
coming back. So a lot of exercise was there.
So, when did you get time to study and be a doctor? You were
Well,
playing a lot, you were traveling a lot.
One of the things is that at our time, the courses were very simple,
Okay.
the books, and the knowledge was practical knowledge. Nowadays, the issue is that a child have a lot bigger books, all the time in reading, so probably they don't get. But
Sir-
at our time, it was.
So
better.
now, very quickly, what I wanted to discuss over here, because this is something which I've researched for myself. So imagine if we go back in time, I still remember when I was still a kid, and so my father would always have an argument with my grandfather and be like, because my grandfather was very used to of having desi ghee and
Right.
sarson ka saag and makai ki roti and parathe and chapatis and eggs and whatnot.
Right.
So my father always used to tell him that, God forbid, you're going to block your heart valves, you eat so much ghee and whatnot. So the research back then backed it that, that the researchers and the doctors used to say that desi ghee kam khaye, do not use it quite a lot because it can give you cholesterol and so many other things. Now, medicine and the researchers say the opposite. They say that, hey, you know what, desi ghee is actually beneficial for you and for your health. So I think somewhere in between that research has deteriorated, or probably all of those people who wanted to sell these more newer brands of oil, they kind of backed it up. I don't know why, according to what agenda, but I still stand by that desi ghee and all of those dietary health. I have seen the results of it. My grandfather, alhamdulillah, lived a healthy life till 87 years, and he was walking, everything was in shape. And now, unfortunately, with all of these cooking oils and dalde, and I see a lot of problems. You know, there's an increase in cholesterol, there's an increase in strokes, there's an increase in heart attacks, and there's increase in diabetes too.
See, if you want me to answer, if at that time meat intake was very low,
So that time mutton was the only meat we were
but
eating.
it was not available at a very
Obviously
large.
it wasn't.
It was
You-
not
you-
available to us because now.
But even people weren't
now
eating
poultry,
these poultry chickens as well.
Now poultry, dairy, the things are available. At that time, obviously in the natural growth, it was not available as frequently.
Exactly.
So people were on simple diet. Well, ghee and makhan, they were very favorite.
Yeah.
But the issue is, they will take ghee and they will work a lot.
Yeah.
So if
that's
you
true.
don't, if you
Burn
cannot
their
go
calories,
back to
yeah.
that, so at the moment that doesn't hold true.
So coming to the prevention
For
bit.
the oil, one of the things I will tell you, this dalda and other things, because there are a lot of trans fat in it. Otherwise, oil is better because we say that saturated fat you should avoid, and the unsaturated fat is the oil,
Okay.
which comes from the plant source.
All right.
Yeah, I will say simple thing, any fat which is solid or semi-solid on room temperature is saturated fat.
Okay.
So anything which is
Saturated. We
which
should
is,
avoid
which
that.
is liquid is unsaturated.
Okay.
So best unsaturated is olive oil.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful.
So what you're trying to say is that we need to
So oil
consume
is better.
unsaturated.
Oil is better. Oil
Yeah.
is better, but the other issue is the way
But sir, we go to Peshawar, you know,
Right.
and to have that charbi wala gosh, you know, mutton filled with fat, and we like it too much, and then we are so used to
amount
it.
is important. So animal fat,
Yeah.
whether it is charbi, whether it is ghee, whether it is makhan, butter, this is saturated fat.
Okay.
This is all saturated fat.
Okay.
Plant source, this is unsaturated.
All
The
right.
saturated fat our forefathers used to eat, but they used to
Work
burn
a
it.
Worked.
lot.
Yeah.
They used to burn it a lot.
Yeah, true. So if you consume it, we need to burn it, we need to exercise, we need to have that healthier lifestyle, and with that we can prevent having
At that
type 2
time,
diabetes.
lot of fruit and vegetable. You will agree that if they were taking ghee, but they were taking with sarson ka saag.
Yeah.
So they will take a chunk of sarson ka saag with 1 or 2 teaspoonful of ghee. This was
Exactly. But
This
thank
is
you very much, Dr. Saab, for being
Thank you
with
so
us.
much.
Lovely to be in conversation with you, and thank you very much for making us understand that type 2 diabetes, ladies and gentlemen, can actually be prevented. It can be controlled. I mean, any type of diabetes can be
Right.
controlled. All you need to do is make sure, first of all, get yourself tested. If you have, God forbid, if you are somewhere closer to getting diabetes, make some of these healthier adjustments to your lifestyle so that you can actually make it or push it a little further away. God forbid, if you still have it, treatments are available. And there are people, you know, who are actually living a very healthier life. You know, for example, Mr. Wasim Akram, from a very younger life, ladies and gentlemen, he's been diagnosed with diabetes, but he's maintained it with a healthier lifestyle, exercise, diet. So please make sure that you do that too as well, because God forbid, it happens to be silent killer. If people do not really get to know about it in time, it can be fatal.
So with that, we're going on a short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying tuned to the PTV World. Siddharth, so I do remember that I met a young woman out there, and she had some problem, visually she had some problem, but she was so brilliant, she was so intellectual, and she inspired me so much out there because she was contributing so much to our society, especially in terms of intellectual research and whatnot. So people who are differently able, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given them some unique gifts, and I think with the accessibility, with the good support, out, we can polish them and we can make them apart, and we can mainstream them, because I do feel that in Pakistan there's a lot of problem when accessing the infrastructure, when accessing a lot of things which I think a normal people does have, right? So in order to talk more about it and to explore the concept of being differently able, we have a true, I think truly an inspirational story here. The guy is he's visually impaired, and he happens to be also the clinical psychologist. He is Zulkarnain Asghar. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to the show.
Walaikum. Thank you for having me in the show.
Jazakallah sir, and he's a household name in the Twin Cities, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you go, you just drop the name of Zulkarnain and people be like, oh sir, hum bhi jante hain bhai ko, kya baat hai bhai ki, alhamdulillah. So thank you very much Zulkarnain bhai,
Thank you.
once again for joining us over here. I think it's been quite a longer period of time that we have met you, that we have had you on the show, but today it's a very important topic, you know. So imagine on the 3rd of December,
Right.
it was World Disability Day, and when we speak about disability, particularly in a country like Pakistan where the infrastructure is not very helpful for them, I think there's quite a lot of awareness which needs to be created amongst all of those parties who are going to make it feasible for people like you, people like me, so that we can equally share the resources of our motherland, and it's of utmost importance. So first of all, how important do you think it is for us to observe World Disability Day, and what sort of awareness campaigns really need to be out there when we talk about Pakistan?
Thank you, Shehzad. It's very important question. First, I would like to say few lines about the history
sir.
of this International Disability Day.
Sure.
That was 1976 when United Nations declared Disability Year. That was the year. In 1983, that was declared Decade of Disability. In 1983, United Nations first adopted the Employment and Rehabilitation Covenant. In 1992, United Nations declared this day. The significance of this day, because we discuss the challenges person having multiple impairment they are facing. For instance, they are facing infrastructural barriers.
True.
Those are visible.
Yeah.
But most important thing, that is attitudinal barrier. If you talk about disability, people feel some kind of pity on person living with disabilities. People have different views. Most of the time people think they are the result of the parents' curse, and this thoughts, this notion, these thoughts
True. The
prevail
stigma.
across the population, regardless of poor, regardless of rich, regardless of upper class,
Yeah, true.
middle class, everyone. And sometimes people don't understand the needs of the person living with disabilities. That is the reason they think they are not, they don't consider them equal human being. And this is the story, that's why we think it is important to have these days, and we need to tackle three things. First, infrastructural barrier, we need to eradicate those barriers, and through these days we have create awareness, sensitize society. Second, we what we can say, attitudinal barrier, we need to eradicate those barriers. That is the important thing. And third, institutional barriers.
And also, sir, have you seen any shift around the conversation regarding the people who are differently able? Because there are a lot of conversation that has spiked up, but have you also seen a change in the shift in the attitudes of the people regarding in this topic?
Okay, sometime when people are free in power corridors, they talk about disability. They say this is the issue, that we need to work on that. When they made pledges, but the important thing is need to fulfill those pledges.
Right.
And second area is there is a difference. Yes, initially people used to talk, this is the hospital's issue. Now this issue is being discussed in the parliaments, in the during bureaucracy, and this credit goes to channel like you people, because you PTV World is the only channel that give due credit to this issue. and we are really thankful to you people.
Jazakallah, sir. Jazakallah. And sir, in addition to that, this is something which I wanted to ask, that obviously we speak about how the government really needs to take, you know, a stronger stance on making sure that there are equal opportunities available for everybody. Because obviously there is a particular quota in place, you know, for people who are living with disabilities. And, you know, yes, alhamdulillah, even over here at PTV, we do have a lot of colleagues who are living with disability, alhamdulillah, living a very healthier life. But now what I wanted to ask was that, you know, with so much of technology around us, I think every individual can help themselves by adopting to all of those technological techniques. I mean, for example, you know, voice commands on phone, you know, we do have these white canes having a lot of technology these days too as well. Then there are GPS in place which keeps on talking to you. How do you think for individuals who, God forbid, have been living with disability but are not aware of what technological interventions have been made within the people, so that for the people who have been living with a disability can adopt them? Do you think that individually one should actually kind of reach out to those interventions so that they can make their life more easier and accessible, and, you know, so that they can travel, they can go do whatever we do?
Thank you. This is the basic question, and what I believe, access to the technology is the fundamental right of every person living with disability, and that is the responsibility of the state. The reason is people are not getting that technology. I can give you one example. Only 2% people got admission in special education institution, those they have disability. Rest of the 98% or 95%, some people say 5%, some says 2%. Rest of the children having disability, they don't have access to the educational institution. We need to educate the masses, we need to sensitize the masses first. Second, if people living with disabilities, they are having multiple disabilities, they are sitting in the parliaments, they are sitting in the National Assembly, Provincial Assembly, Senate, and though that is a really encouraging thing, Sindh and Punjab, they have allocated seats in their local body governments. So person having disabilities, 1% seats that they can participate in the local body system. And if politically empower they got empowerment, political empowerment, then this issue could be resolved. You know, in Japan, when Yoshihiko, their senator, he sat there in their senate, and he made changes, and that is the thing. This is the right time to empower person living with disabilities, their political empowerment, their financial empowerment, inclusion. Both things are very important, but the most thing, access to the devices, assistive devices, that should be available in every district, rather I say in every town of the country, and that should be available, easily available, though those are duty free, but yet those are limited, availability is very limited.
So thank you so much for saying that. And Shahzad, as I was listening to my podcast and it talked about how to approach the conversation, especially with the people who are differently able, and one of the problem or the I think interesting point that offered was that a lot of people are sometimes giving unwanted support to the people who are differently able, and although you are encouraging the ableism, but sometimes it's also a challenge for them, because I mean they don't need it and they want to be treated at the equal. And also gazing out there, especially we witness that in the public spaces, out of people who are differently able, the typical people
staring at them, gazing at them, you know, and then being more empathetic than usual.
True.
I think that's something which they don't like. But thank you very much, Zulkarnain Bhai, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with you, and that too on such an important topic. And you are a source of inspiration for millions of people all across the globe. You happen to be a clinical psychologist yourself, and every time we wanted you to serve the nation, you've always been around us. Thank you very much once again. We're in debt.
Thank you.
Thank you once again. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, this is not it for today. You know, so on Saturday, Hajra didn't come along, so I actually had to go somewhere, and I'm glad that, you know, I was able to do that. So imagine, for the very first time over here in Pakistan, a jazz music festival took place. You know, bands from all over the world, may it be Poland, may it be United States of America, may it be Switzerland, came over. But what happened was that the first band to land over here in Pakistan was a Swiss band.
Okay.
So what we did was that we went to the residence of His Excellency Mr. Georg Steiner, the ambassador of Switzerland to Pakistan, you know, because, you know, just to kind of give them a warm welcome, and then there was an audience, and then the band, the Three Little Cats, were actually playing out there as well. So we went there. What happened is something which we wanted to share with you. Please go ahead, take a good look. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored, and we are over here at the Embassy of Switzerland. And not just that, imagine that obviously over here in Pakistan, for the very first time in the history of Pakistan, first ever jazz festival is taking place, and we have a Swiss band over here today at the Switzerland Embassy. Not just that, I'm humbled that I've been joined by His Excellency Georg Steiner, who happens to be the ambassador of Switzerland to Pakistan. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good evening, how are you?
Good evening, sir. Great to see you. Wonderful to have you at Swiss Resident. I'm so happy to see you.
Even we are glad and we are happy, you know, where we can play our role, and it's wonderful to be here. So the first ever jazz festival is taking place. It's set to take place tomorrow, but the kickoff happens to be at the Switzerland Embassy in Islamabad. Why?
Well, we thought that we would like to pay tribute to this first jazz festival, and tonight we think that the best is yet to come, but we will try our best that this is going to be a wonderful evening for everyone here invited, for you, for my colleagues, and for myself. And I think to have a jazz concert live on stage at the Swiss Residence in Islamabad is a good start for what is to come tomorrow.
Exactly, and it obviously speaks volumes about the culture and the values and the morals too as well. And for Pakistan, I think when we speak about our art and culture, I think we're not very well acquainted with jazz too, which is why hence we are here. We want our people, our audiences to be well acquainted to it. How is your affiliation with jazz music?
Well, I have insofar a personal relationship as that I think jazz equals to creating new things, being in a good mood, different styles at different moments. So I think it's a wonderful way of making music. I think it's a wonderful music to listen to, but I think it's also especially a wonderful music to play, and that's why I'm very proud to have two outstanding Swiss artists tonight from the Late Night Cats band, and I think they are going to rock the resident.
So once again, thank you very much, Mr. Georg Steiner, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Switzerland to Pakistan, for having us over. It was a night full of pleasure. Thank you very much for making us listen to the Three Little Cats all the way from Switzerland.
So, Shehzad, jazz is very popular genre, especially in the West. Do you think it finds the same traction here in Pakistan?
No, it does not. I think, you know, if we would have another dhol player alongside it, would have made more sense to Pakistanis, but obviously it's a very different flavor, and a lot of people are really very overwhelmed with jazz music, and it was great to listen to jazz music over here in Pakistan when for the very first time a jazz music festival is taking place, where bands from all over the world are actually coming down to Pakistan, opening up more avenues for our musicians and artists. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us. Please make sure that you write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of
World This Morning.
On Twitter.
World This Morning.
On Daily Motion in GT.
World This Morning.
The Fabulous Repeat's going to be at, we don't know. Exactly, that's the answer, ladies and gentlemen. But until the next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning.